It's been a lovely warm Wednesday. It's been quite a busy day. It's been filled with wonderful progress from all the clients that I've seen. Good explorations. Basically nothing to complain about on this warm, sunny day. Until I saw a bit of cloud cover. However, thank you all for once again coming through to and viewing this podcast that I have recently just popped up, and it's on my third episode now, so I'm really quite happy about doing this. And today we have a very interesting topic on our hands. And the topic is, I themed it as the power of sadness. That's it made me curious to think about it as I was typing it out as a form of an essay. What do I mean by the power of sadness? What is the power of sadness? What does sadness give us besides misery, affecting our lives in a way that we lose our sense of joy, we lose our sense of passion, we either lose sleep or we don't lose sleep, or we feel like there's no purpose in this world. How can something that brings us so much negativity bring us power? Here's the thing though. The other factor that I would like to say is that we don't like to show our sadness, and therefore we use a lot of distractions. And why is that? Why are you so quick to show joy and love and comfort and anger, even in most cases, but sadness is not something we like to share? But all in all, we are good at hiding things. We're really good at hiding things, and the reason why we hide our emotions, I feel, is because we try to keep them to ourselves so that we don't get hurt more so than we are right now. So when it comes to hiding our emotions, we really care for our emotions. We're very protective over them, and we want to avoid hurting ourselves even more. And how do we protect ourselves? How do we hide our emotions? And we hide our emotions with the use of our coping mechanisms, or with the use of our defense mechanisms, or whatever we call it these days. So what are these coping mechanisms? These coping mechanisms could be any form of action or activity that you do in order to feel less sad, right? So let's say for example, you don't feel the joy of the day, and you choose to flood yourself in work. It distracts the mind. It distracts you from thinking about the things that are making you sad. There are, of course, external factors that occur throughout your life that will make you feel, that will change or will alter your emotional state. Sadness being an emotion, it is most likely the case that you would feel sad about certain things over a period of time. But what I'm talking about over here is a compression of sadness over a period of time, where it becomes a challenge. To find joy and happiness in the little things that once gave you joy and happiness, or the little things that brought you a sense of purpose and confidence and self-esteem and so forth. But I digress. Coming back to it, the reason why we keep our coping mechanisms, or our defense mechanisms, or our defensive tools in that matter, is that we struggle to trust the people that are around us. Sometimes it's very hard for people to open up to other people, or sometimes it may be hard for you to open up to other people in your life, because you wonder if you can trust them with your emotions, if you can trust them with what is actually bothering you, what is actually bringing out the sadness in you. Sometimes we choose not to tell people because we are afraid of being judged. We are afraid of being in a space where people will laugh at us, would think that our reasoning behind our sadness is not that bad, or it's not that serious. And that's why sometimes we hide our emotions, and sometimes that's the reason why we hide, more specifically, our sadness. But here's the thing, over a period of time, and over a period of time, no matter how long it can be, months, days, years, weeks, not in that order, you start to notice that your defense mechanisms or your coping tools or your strategies are no longer working. And you start to notice that you're getting yourself, you're doing the same thing to try your level best to to make yourself distracted, to make yourself happy, to make yourself not feel sadness in a way. But you start to notice that these tools that you have, these distractions that you have, are no longer working. And this is the part where I say people become a bit more vulnerable. People become more vulnerable at a time, we know that there's a lot of vulnerability around that, because your defense mechanisms or your coping strategies are not working. So, in other words, what do I say? In a brighter sense, or in a lighter sense, when sadness starts to exacerbate, inflate, trying to show its face a little bit more because it's tired of being ignored, this is the part where I can say that you are in a very vulnerable space, because the external factors are getting worse and worse, and it's causing you to feel a lot less joy in the world. The thing is, people will only ask for help at a time when they are most vulnerable. You will ask for help from people that you trust. You will ask for help from the people that care about you. You will ask for help from even a therapist or your doctor at a time when you are most vulnerable. And the reason why for this wait is because you have this notion of, I will do it myself, I will feel better, I have been in this space before. That could be one. The other part is that historically you have put your trust in others and they have done nothing but break it, and it affected you. It affected you in the sense that you even became cautious around the people that actually were there for you. Right? So, in other words, sometimes the power of sadness is nothing more but trying to try and confront the things that are causing sadness to appear. And it's also something to show you that there's something that is in your life that you need, something you require. Sadness is an indicator that you require support, love, care, warmth, a person to speak to, a hug maybe that you need to feel safe. That is what sadness is trying to tell you, and it's very hard to acknowledge that, and sometimes you can become very resistant. So I say that one of the most difficult things for my clients to ever acknowledge, and I don't know if other therapists have the same issue, or challenge, you can share it in the comments if you like. But one of the things that is very difficult for my clients to acknowledge is their emotions, and more specifically emotions that more specifically sad emotion, the emotion called sadness rather. And they will try and say anything else around it, but they won't specifically admit to the fact that they are feeling sad, or it's an exacerbated amount of sadness that is sort of, I don't want to say paralytic, but let's just say it's causing a lot of it's causing a challenge in their personal life, in their work life, in their social life. They start to see and notice that they are isolating themselves from their friends, their work performance is at a decline, and there's probably things happening at home that maybe they don't wish to share. But sadness in its own sense, I feel, is trying to tell you that you need something, because something has changed and something is missing. So I use this tool in my sessions as a prompted journaling theme, and I call it now the power of sadness. And I ask 3 questions, just 3 questions. What I noticed, or a trend rather, is that a person feels a level of sadness when they experience change, and this change causes something to make them feel as though something is missing, or something is literally missing. And because of those 2 things in play simultaneously, the person needs something. They need something that would help them get a sense of comfort, to make them feel that everything is okay, to make them feel that they are supported and loved and warmingly welcomed. So, what's changed? What's missing? What's needed? Those are the 3 questions that I usually ask to explore what sadness really, what happens when a person feels this deep amount of sadness. So let's start with what's changed. Right? And the first thing I can say to you is that change is inevitable. As long as the world keeps spinning, and as long as people are over here, and as long as there's day and as long as there's night, change is inevitable. It's always going to happen. There's always something that's going to change. But sometimes these changes affect you in ways that you struggle to accept these changes. So, prime example that I can use, and I have several listed down over here. Some people are, once again I'll say, some people easily adapt to change, and while others they struggle, and it's all dependent. Maybe it's dependent on the situation. Maybe it's dependent on what has changed in your life personally that has affected you. So some examples that I've noted are a change in management at work has altered your way of working. Maybe you are in a space where there's this, a change in management equates to a change in management style. You were used to a particular management style, and now there's a new manager. As a result, you now have to adapt to this new management style, and sometimes you're resistant to this change, and what happens is you try to do the same thing that you did before, hoping for the same outcome, but you're getting into trouble. That in itself can cause a high level of frustration, but that can also cause a high level of doubt, and then in turn can also cause a high level, a deflation in joy, because are you doing the right thing is pretty much the question that you ask yourself in this moment. You're getting into trouble for things that you have been doing your work this way for many years, but new person comes in, and suddenly there's this high amount of change that's required from you, and you are definitely resistant to it at a period of time. So you have two options in this scenario: is either you adapt to the change, or you continue getting into trouble until eventually you get fired, or until eventually you start looking for a new place of work because you feel that you and the manager are not a good fit. That's one thing that I can say. The other avenue is the other example that I did mention or note down is the change of place. Right? Maybe you've moved from province to province. Maybe you moved house from one suburb to another. Maybe you moved from another country to another, and there's this deep resistance that is met in that essence. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to adapt to new places. An example that I can use in this case over here, there was a gentleman that was sitting over here, and he moved from another province here. Province with a beach, lovely scenery, beautiful buildings, great people. And he moved from that place and he came to Joburg. He came here, and our province is landlocked. It's very fast paced. It's very high stress. It's very concrete. And it's very congested when you look at the traffic at around 5 in the afternoon. And so because of this, there's this major shock in this person's feeling, and he started noticing that he is feeling a lot less happy about his decision coming over here. And we explored the concept of adjustment, and as a result, tried to do things in a different way and giving the province or the city another chance. And gradually we noted that that positive changes were happening. Joy was coming back, so to say. So that's another thing as well. Another change could be maybe you change schools, maybe you change universities. No matter what it is, sometimes this change is always going to you may be easily adaptable to it, or sometimes you may be resistant to it, right? And sometimes the hardest thing to admit is the fact that you are resistant to change. The moment we realize that we are resistant sometimes to change, that's when we can say, okay, fine, this is where the work needs to be done. This is the first level of understanding how powerful sadness is. It's trying to reveal to you that the struggle to adjust to certain changes in your life is causing you to feel unsupported, uncared for, making you feel frustrated in some way, that you're doing this like how you've done it all this time, but the results are not the same. Change is something that is not within our control, and because of that, we don't expect change. We sometimes have to adapt to it because it's sudden, and sometimes we need that time to ensure that we feel that we are ready for this change to occur. And that's the part where I can say responsibility comes in. We are responsible for how we react during a time of change. And sometimes that reaction isn't that great from us, and sometimes that reaction goes really well, but it is our responsibility. Why? Because we are in control of our emotions. And the other thing is that I can say to you is that we are in control of what emotions we acknowledge. And sadness is an emotion that I would say requires acknowledgement, especially when change is around. Change also, however, to say this, change also isn't always something that you're resistant to because because of certain factors that you don't like, that you have to adapt to. Sometimes change is because sometimes sadness appears because something's missing, or someone's missing. There is something. The change has caused a sense of loss, and in that turn, you find yourself in a position where you realize that something is missing, and you're trying to be very resistant to not acknowledge that sadness because something is missing. So, what is missing? Now, in order for you to miss something, it must bring meaning to your life. In order for you to feel something, to have an emotional response to something, it must bring sentiment or meaning into your life. And if it doesn't bring any sentiment, if it doesn't bring any meaning, and if it's something that just went missing, there shouldn't, or there usually isn't an emotional response that causes psychological or emotional distress, right? However, there are some changes, there are some things that you miss that have great sentiment, a great amount of sentiment in your life, a great amount of meaning in your life. It has a lot of sentimental value, or great meaning in the sense that you acknowledge that this person or this thing is no longer anywhere near you. So I could say that human beings attach happiness to certain objects and to certain people in their lives, and as long as those objects are around people, are around them or around you, you will feel this joy all the way through. Of course, emotions fluctuate and change in its own way, but most of the time you do feel the sense of joy, the sense of happiness when these things or when this person is around. However, sometimes it doesn't always work. Sometimes things go missing. Sometimes things go missing in such a way that you'll never be able to find them again. Maybe it was a sentimental object such as a trophy, or maybe it was something maybe it was a trophy, maybe it was a medal, maybe it was something that your partner had given you that suddenly went missing. And the great amount of sadness that you would feel, or distress that you would feel, is an indication that, okay, there's a lot of emotion that was put into this, and it held a lot of sentimental value, and over a period of time, if you cannot find it, sadness will appear, it will show itself, and you would feel this how do I say, this heaviness around something being missing, because it has some memory to it, it has some sentimental value to it. And maybe it was the last remaining thing that brought those memories back, so to say. Something is missing is not limited to objects only, as you know that I have been saying. Someone could be missing, and loss and grief is definitely, or missing. Okay, and loss and grief is one of those. Sometimes the people that you love the most, that you held highly in your life, that you prioritized over many others, once you suffer that loss and that grief, it's very hard for you to not feel sadness, or not allow sadness to appear overtly on your face through tears. You're gonna try your level best to be yourself while breaking on the inside, because there's this loss. It's a tragic loss, and it's something that you are trying to overcome by yourself. This is where your defense mechanisms come in. But over a period of time, I can say that this loss and this grief becomes so inflated in your life that all you can do is realize how much you miss this person and how much grief and sadness it's bringing you. And that is the point where I would say, yeah, you're vulnerable, most vulnerable. Grief and loss is not the only thing that can go missing as well. You could talk about maybe you miss the conversations with your own manager or your own old boss. Maybe that's what's missing. Maybe you're resistant to the change of management because you had such a great relationship with, or a meaningful relationship with your manager or with your boss, who is now resigned and has gone for greener pastures or retirement or any other matter for that. Something's missing means that it has brought that meaning in your life where it was exciting and fun and joyful and brought you happiness. And when those things go and they disappear, or you lose it to grief, or you lose it through resignation, you start to notice the resistance. And you do whatever you can to not show that resistance, or you do whatever you can to not show that sadness that it's bringing you. Sadness is not an element of weakness. Sadness is not an emotion of weakness at all, but rather it's an emotion to show you that you require something to give you strength going forward. And that brings me to the last question. What is needed? What is needed is not your coping mechanisms or your tools. No. What is needed is support, comfort, warmth, love, joy. Things that will always, things that are required at a time of change or great suffering through something missing. And this is the part where I say you need to explore yourself and look at the people that you have around you. Who can you trust for that comfort, care and support? Is it your closest friends? Is it your parents? Is it your partner? Those that have been asking for a period of time, such as your parents, your partner and your closest friends, they really do care about you. They really are waiting for that opportunity where they can sit down and listen and give you the comfort and support that you need. And this is the part where I say to you, list down the things that you need. Write down the things that you need. What is it that you need to overcome this overbearing amount of sadness caused by change or caused by loss? Caused by something that's missing in your life that brought purpose, happiness, joy. What is it? So list it down. Going for therapy is one of those things. If you find that you're struggling to trust a person in your life currently as a support structure, friends, family, perhaps you're struggling to go up to your partner because you don't want to be seen as weak in front of them. And the best place you can go is to a person that would hold your secrets in a confidential space. There's no judgment when you go to see or speak to a therapist. Perhaps they'll even try and help you explore the emotion of sadness and bring out the things that are making you feel sad. Maybe it is change, maybe it is loss, maybe it is other factors that I'm all open, I'm all ears to listen to and hear. Maybe it's any of those things in that essence. Whatever you need is subjective to you. It can be anything that would bring you a sense of support and guidance and help going forward. So this is what I use as a prompt journal to try and identify what what sadness is literally trying to tell you. Where in the element of change, what change is it that is making you feel this sadness? In the element of what is missing, what is it that is causing you to feel such grief and loss? And in the element of what's needed, what is it that you can? What is it that the people that care about you can do for you? What is it that your therapist can do for you? So it's a good. It has been something that I have been utilizing as a journal prompt. We've gone through a lot of exploration and discussions, and safe to say that we get into a bit of resistance at sometimes, and sometimes the client is not ready to acknowledge the sadness, and that's okay. We reset it and we try it again. So I would say to you, utilize this little template that I've created an essay about and now a podcast as a way of trying to get in tune with your emotions, or more specifically sadness. So I thank you guys for listening. I thank you guys for watching. If you are on YouTube, we'll be thinking about something else to talk about in our next podcast coming up next week. But until next time.